Greetings, Carter High School AP students and parents. My name is Mr. Wilson. I am one of the counselors at Carter High School, and today, right now, what I'd like to do with you guys really quickly is our time management workshop. So this is obviously a bit of a different version than the one we would do if we were doing this live, but just kind of wanted to take you through just the concept of time management, what it means, and what we can do to have a better understanding of what our day looks like, especially as you as AP students are preparing to take AP classes next year. So you'll notice on the first slide that you have in front of you, my subtitle, if you will, for this says "Who or what is controlling how you spend your time?" And that's really the whole idea of time management, is thinking about and understanding not just what my time looks like, but how it's being controlled. So that's really how I would like us to discuss this concept of time management today. So before we can even get into, what time management is and all that stuff, it's good to start with a good definition. And like all things good on the internet, I went ahead and just started with Wikipedia because it's as good a place as any to find a definition. So Wikipedia defines time management as the process of planning and exercising conscious control over the amount of time spent on specific activities, especially to increase effectiveness, efficiency, or productivity. Obviously, what I think are the two most important words in this definition is conscious control. If you are good at time management, it means that you have conscious control over what is going on with your time. And conscious means that you're making the decisions and not something or someone else. So that's really the whole concept of time management in a nutshell. So before we go further, I would like to show you guys this video that is from YouTube, and I'm probably breaking all the internet rules by including it in my video, but so be it. I can definitely take it down when YouTube flags it and tells me otherwise. But let's start by watching this video that is a classic story, but I think is very good for us to understand what time management is.
There's a well-known story about a university professor who wanted to make a point about how we make the most of our time. The professor stood before his class with some items in front of him. When the class began, without speaking, he picked up a large empty jar and proceeded to fill it with rocks about 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was full. So the professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar lightly and watched as the pebbles rolled into the open areas between the rocks. The professor then asked the students again if the jar was full. They chuckled and agreed that it was indeed full this time. The professor picked up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. The sand filled the remaining open areas of the jar. "Now," said the professor, "I want you to recognize that this jar signifies your life. The rocks are the truly important things, such as family, health, and relationships. If all else was lost and only the rocks remained, your life would still be meaningful. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. The sand signifies the remaining small stuff and material possessions. If you were to put sand into the jar first, there is no room for the rocks or the pebbles. The same can be applied to your lives. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you will never have room for the things that are truly important. Pay attention to the things in life that are critical to your happiness and well-being. Take time to look after your health, play with your children, go for a run, write a letter to your grandmother. There will always be time to go to work, clean the house, or watch TV. Take care of the rocks first. The things that really matter. Set your priorities. The rest is just pebbles and sand."
So what I like about this video is, especially in having this conversation over what does time management means, is basically we have a good idea using the laws of physics for trying to understand how we can fit everything that we need to fit into our lives. And so if we break everything down into this concept of rocks, pebbles, and sand, it's really important for us to stop, take a moment, look at all of our responsibilities and obligations, and try to categorize those things. And so what you see on the screen in front of you is how I think some of these things should be broken down. Ultimately, you're going to have to make the decision on how these are broken broken down. But I think a good definition for rocks, the stuff that is super important, is family, home relationships, and obligations. So these are the things that are never going to go away. Like when high school is all said and done, you're still going to have an obligation to your family and the people that you love, and that always has to be first and foremost. So what are the pebbles? I think the pebbles are academic responsibilities, off-campus commitments, on-campus commitments, just all the different activities that we have going in our lives that are still important, but not as important as the family, home relationships, that kind of stuff. And then all the other stuff. And whatever you want to cram into this category, for my example, I put friends, phones, social media, binge watching, etc. That's the sand. And so I think as we think about what we see in this video, I think that is the important lesson is you're never going to have time management figured out and have room for all the important stuff if you start with the sand. But if we start with the rocks, and then the pebbles go into the jar, there's still going to be plenty of room and time for the sand to fit in there, but it's just a matter of priorities and kind of getting those things in order. So I think it's really important for us to remember this stuff. And notice that this is a high school counselor saying that I don't think that the school stuff is rocks. I'm not going to come right out and say that. I think that there are bigger things going on in your life than what you have going on at high school. But if all the high school stuff, whether it's academic or other activities and commitments that you have going on, are pebbles, you're never going to be able to fit those pebbles in unless we do this in the right order. So that's why I think is important as we're having this conversation about time management. At this point, there is a downloadable worksheet that you can get on the AP Summit website that we set up, so you can download that. If you don't want to download it, you can just grab a piece of scratch paper right now. Everything's going to be on the screen in front of you. But what I would like you to do, and this would be great if you could do this with your parent as well, because I think it'll help keep you honest and help remember everything. So student and parent, good activity to do together. But take a couple minutes and list out all of your commitments that you have for the next academic school year at Carter High School. So remember home and family, off-campus commitments, on-campus commitments, sports if you're playing anything, AP classes, other could be if you're part of any other sort of like academic teams or clubs or any of that kind of stuff. But take a moment and try to list everything that you have going on in your life for next year. And this would be a good moment to pause the video because I'm not going to spend a couple minutes of silence on here. So pause the video, fill this stuff out, and then start it again when you are ready. All right, the next thing that I would like you to do, now you've listed out all of your stuff that you have going on. So now I want you to use the chart that you see on the screen or on the worksheet or scratch paper, whatever, but use that chart and try to think about what each of this stuff looks like as far as how many minutes per day each of these things are going to take. So on an average school day, how many minutes is this going to take? And be realistic with this. And what I'm going to put up in front of the screen for you, and I've also put this as a downloadable if you want to grab it, these are good estimates from the people on campus who run these things as far as what do AP classes look like time commitment wise, what do sports look like time commitment wise, other clubs and activities. This is not an exhaustive list. It's not everything, but it's a good place to start. And these are the people who are in charge of these programs telling you about what their daily commitment. So this is an average minutes per day. So take some time to fill out that chart with all of the stuff that you have going on, and you can use this chart in front of you as far as figuring that out. But just start writing down like what your day looks like. And again, good place to pause the video. I'm going to stop for a second, and you can fill this in. Okay, now that you have a good list of all of your activities, AP classes, other stuff that you have going on, and an estimate of how much time per day that it's going to take, the next chart that we want you guys to fill out is a time block. So we know what your life looks like from when you wake up until 2:30 in the afternoon, because that's what time school is, right? So you'll notice on this chart that you have from 2:30 p.m. until 11 o'clock at night to fill in when all of these things are going to happen. So what we'd like you to do is take a few moments and use your chart that you filled out with all the stuff you have going on and see where it fits. And remember, snacks, breaks, dinner, sleep. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, none of this stuff matters. So where does that stuff fit in? And this is probably also a good time to point out that just because this chart goes till 11 o'clock at night does not mean that we want you up until 11 o'clock at night. I hear stories all the time of AP students that are up until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning just trying to get all their stuff done. And guys, I don't think there's anything healthy about that. I do think that every once in a while, something like that might be necessary if there's something huge that you have going on that you've kind of let get away from you, but that should definitely not be part of the norm. And I think it'd be really smart for you to have this figured out with your parents as far as what their expectations of your time are. I know that one of the teachers on campus, his son is a student at Carter High School, and the rule is that you're done and you're in bed at 10 p.m. every night, regardless of whether or not you're done with your homework. And I think that's fair because realistically, most of what you have going on, if you can't get it done before then, you probably have too much going on in your life. So take a few minutes, fill out what a normal day would look like, an average school day with all of your commitments in there, and remember time for snacks, breaks, dinner, sleep, that kind of stuff. So fill that out. Again, pause the video here for a second while you do that. All right, so hopefully what has come of this activity is just a way for you to honestly look at your day and your commitments and how that is all going to develop into how things get done. So hopefully that's what's come out of this. We definitely at Carter High School, and this is coming from the counseling department, it's coming from teachers, it's coming from administration. We really, really like the idea of students doing rigor and doing as much as possible. I definitely want you guys to be challenged while you're in high school, but we also don't want you to do so much that you can't control what's going on. If your time is getting away from you and you can't get your work done, that's an issue. And this is probably another good time to point out that different people's time are going to look like different things. If you are really good in, say, math, AP Calculus might not take you any time at all to get the homework done, whereas somebody else, what took you 20 minutes, it might take them like an hour and a half to get that work done. So this is a matter of being honest where your strengths are as well. We definitely want you to sign up for as many AP classes as you feel like you can do, but I'm going to be really clear. Most people should not be doing more than 3 AP classes unless you are just really on top of things and you can move at a quick rate as you're getting your stuff done and still have that level of depth. So just be honest as you're looking at your life and trying to figure out what you want to do next year. We want you to make good plans. We want you to be smart. We want you to be healthy. The next portion that I would like to cover, the next topic that I would like to cover in this online workshop is this concept of the tyranny of the urgent. So in the 1960s, Charles Hummel published a little booklet called Tyranny of the Urgent. It quickly became a business classic. In it, Hummel argues that there is a regular tension between things that are urgent and things that are important, and far too often the urgent wins. So what does this mean? Well, it means, and I can really quickly put this in terms of being a counselor. Being a counselor at Carter High School, I could very easily spend my whole day reacting to and putting out fires. So what does that mean? Well, students that come to my office and need things, big things that are going on that need to be solved, it's really easy to get sucked into I just need to react. There's so much going on that I'm in a constant state of reacting to these things, trying to solve them. And that stuff is really important. I mean, yeah, if there's a fire that needs to be put out, we need to put it out. Otherwise, it's going to burn the whole building down, and we don't want that. But oftentimes, the things that are important are the things that require planning, need to get done as well. And if we don't plan those things out and take care of it, the urgent things are going to take over. And I think that's when the whole concept of time management really falls apart. And again, remember, it's all about who's controlling your time. Are you controlling your time, or are your activities and other circumstances controlling your time? If you are constantly living in a state of reacting to everything, you are going to feel stressed out and you're not going to have control over this stuff. So we want to find a good tension between getting my stuff done and planning things out and still having room in my schedule to react to things that I might not know are going to come, the unexpected. So we don't want to fall into this trap of the urgent things sucking up everything that I have to give. There still needs to be some room to plan. Okay. So in that, what I'd like to do next is kind of talk about 7 different ways to take control of your time. And all of these are directly from Big Future. If you guys have never checked out Big Future, it's one of my favorite websites to mention to students. But Big Future is part of College Board. College Board is the company that publishes the SAT and all the AP exams. And Big Future is like an online place for all things college. So you can literally do all of your college research there, but they also have a lot of helpful things as far as studying goes. So this list of 7 things is directly off of Big Future. So their first thing that they want to point out is that it would be very good to make a to-do list every day. And this is good. This is really important. And I don't know if you guys ever tried this, but to-do lists are part of my everyday life, especially when I'm stressed and I have a million things going on. I will just grab a sticky note or a piece of paper and list out everything that I have to get done that day. And if you've never done a to-do list, one of the most satisfying things is crossing things off of your list. I can't even explain like how nice that is, but you got 10 things on your list, and to be able to cross something out or cross 2 things out and see this physical manifestation of like, I'm getting this stuff done, it feels really good. It's also a really good way to remember everything. Constantly when I'm talking to students about why they didn't get this stuff done, students often reply, well, I forgot. I didn't know that I had that thing. And whether or not that's true or not is a whole nother thing. But if you honestly are forgetting some of the stuff that you have to get done, you got to write it down. So making a to-do list is an excellent way to do that. Number 2, keep your work with you. It surprises me how many students don't know this, but you have a lot of extra time in your day. So I'm just talking about like you might be done with lunch and have just like 20 extra minutes. You might have time while you're waiting for your parents to pick you up after school, or while you just got out after school and practice doesn't start until 3 o'clock. There is a lot of time in there. And if you have your work with you, you can find those opportunities to try and get that stuff done in those spaces. So definitely keep your work with you. Number 3, don't be afraid to say no. This is a big one. I think oftentimes, especially for AP students, you are really good at signing up for way more stuff than you should be signing up for. And this includes all the fun stuff. So don't be afraid to say no. If a friend is asking you to do something and you don't have time to do it, you have to say no to that stuff sometimes. Like sometimes you can't work all that stuff in. And that brings us back to that video analogy that I showed at the beginning of this, but that whole concept of rocks, pebbles, and sand, you got to keep that stuff in priority, or you're going to let it get away from you. So definitely don't be afraid to say no. Number 4, find your productive time. This is another part where you have to be honest. Are you a morning person or are you a night person? Are you most efficient if you're working? Because you're going to be most efficient and produce the best work if you're doing it at the right time. And I think a lot of times people are not honest about this. Because it's real easy to say that you're a night person, but then if your whole day is shot because you were up until 2 in the morning getting your work done, and then you look back at your day and you're like, okay, there were like 3 hours there where I was taking a nap, or I lost like an hour and a half on Twitter, responding to people and going through my feed. You got to be honest about that stuff. So find your productive time and use that to your benefit. Number 5. Create a dedicated study time. So, you sat down and you made like a sample schedule of what your day would look like, but there definitely needs to be devoted time where all you're doing is studying and doing homework. And guys, again, I hate to harp on the whole phone thing, but let's just be real. Far too many of us, and I'm not just talking about high school students, I'm talking about adults as well. We let ourselves be ruled by our cell phones, and our cell phones are awesome. I mean, if you had told me 20 years ago that we were going to be carrying around in our pocket like $1,000 mini computers that could do what they do, I would not believe you. So I get it. Like our cell phones are shiny and they are fun. But guys, if you keep that thing next to you while you're studying or doing your homework, it is so easy to get distracted when somebody texts you or you've got to respond to something or you get a notification. So I don't know if you've ever tried this, but if I have something that I have to get done, and this is an adult speaking, like I literally sometimes have to put my phone in the other room and then go back to where I'm trying to get something done and then go check my phone an hour later, you might try something like that, but definitely create a dedicated study time. Number 6, budget your time. And we just spent a whole lot of time talking about this, but think about what you really need to get done and then budget it and then follow your budget. Okay. And then lastly, number 7, don't get sidetracked. And this really goes back to, where I just kind of went off and started talking about maybe you need to put your phone in the other room. But if you set aside a dedicated time and you're truly budgeting your time and like being smart about how you're spending your time, don't let yourself get sidetracked with stuff that is not super important. If it's something that you think you're going to have to respond to later, add it to your to-do list really quickly and then get your stuff done and then come back to it if there's time. But I think these are 7 great ways to take control of your time. Lastly, and this is kind of big, but it's online, so I'm just gonna go into it anyway. But this whole concept of how to take control of your homework. Again, this is all from Big Future, and you can find all this. And I probably didn't mention this before, but if you Google Big Future, it's the first thing that comes up. It's really easy to find, although you've got the website right in front of you there too. So you don't want your homework to control you. Again, it's all about who has control. You need to be in control as the student. So although very few students love homework, it does serve a purpose. Homework helps you reinforce what you've learned during the day, build study habits that are essential in college, prepare for your classes, get a sense of progress. Here are some tips to help you deal with homework more efficiently and effectively. So firstly, set the mood. Create a good study area, everything you need. So what works for you? If you don't have a quiet place at home, you might need to find another place to get your work done. I have plenty of students. We're blessed at Carter High School that our library is a public library and it's open until late. And so if you need to work there, that's a good place to work. If you can find a quiet place at home, that's great. But setting the mood is really important. And this is probably a good place to talk about the fact that a lot of students think that they are those people that study really well when they have their music on and all that kind of stuff. Most of us don't work that way, you guys. So be honest with yourself. Quiet is good if you really want to study and focus on something. So the second thing is know where to begin. Make a list of everything you need to do. You should be seeing some of these things being kind of a recurring theme, but lists are good. So make a list of everything you need to do, note all the deadlines, and then prioritize. Do your more difficult stuff first so you don't have to face them at the end when you're getting tired and running out of time. And the last one on this, the third thing, is to study at the same time every day. So routine is good, and I know that this is hard for students to understand. It's hard for adults to understand as well. But we as human beings do not function very well if we don't have a routine. And so along with that, waking up at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time every day, eating around the same times every day, it's the same thing with studying. You are going to be most effective if you have a specific time where you do your studying. Okay, so definitely think about that. Next, keep things in perspective. It's important to know how much weight each assignment or test carries and use your time accordingly. A lot of times students will get caught up on a homework assignment that is not worth very much, and then they're not getting the bigger project that's due in 2 weeks taken care of, and that project is worth a quarter of your grade. So it is really important to get on to Student View and know how much these assignments are worth and how they're weighted so that you are keeping your homework time and your study time in perspective. Next, get more involved. This doesn't mean sign up for more activities. It means that while you are studying, you need to keep your mind from wandering. So that could be annotating. So that means taking notes, could be underlining sections. If you have a textbook, I know a lot of our textbooks now have student workbooks where you can actually go through and make notes, but underline sections, highlight, discussing topics with others. If you have a study group online, people that you text with, that kind of stuff, a lot of times discussing something is going to help you retain it. So getting involved with your work and your studying is better than a passive approach. A lot of times students think if I just kind of stare at this thing or read it multiple times, then I'm going to be good to go. When in reality, that's not the way that our brains work, and you need to be doing more with that. And then next, organize the information. So people process information in different ways. It's good for you to know what works for you, and you're not going to find that out until you try some methods. So some people like to draw pictures or charts. Others like to read out loud. Reading out loud really works for me, and I know that probably makes me sound crazy when I'm trying to study a more difficult concept. I'm going to be that guy that's in his room reading something out loud, making sure that I understand it. So find whichever way is going to help you organize the information and do that thing. 4 more things here. Take advantage of your free time. We already covered this with my 7-point checklist, but if you've got time, use it. Studying with a friend is good. That's the next one on here. It's good to have a study group, and you can do this online now, whether it's using Google Meet or joining a physical study group. Studying with other people is good. It's going to bring new perspectives to what you're trying to get done. Communication's key. if you don't, if you have concerns about how much homework you have, it's good to talk to your family, teachers, counselor. They can understand, help you guys allot time for how you're going to get all this stuff done. That's really what we're trying to do today in this workshop. But you're going to need to talk about what's going on rather than just kind of stuffing it all inside and letting it go. Because at some point it's going to explode. And then lastly, celebrate your achievements. If you get something done, I mentioned how good it feels to cross something off a list. Reward yourself. I mean, so I would build into my schedule, if I had a bunch of stuff to get done, every time I get something done on my list, I get 10 minutes to stare at my phone and or watch TV or whatever. So reward yourself with little milestones to kind of keep yourself moving along. Don't let the rewards take over all your time, but it's good to celebrate your achievements. So guys, I know this has been a lot. Just to sum it all up, the concept that I really want you to take out of this workshop is the whole concept of control. If you are going to manage your time, you need to be in control of your time. And that means consciously being the one who is saying, I'm going to do this then and this other thing then, and actually blocking that stuff out and getting it taken care of. So as an AP student, you need to be able to budget your time. We want you to learn how. Hopefully this has been helpful. And remember that whole concept of rocks, pebbles, and sand. Your how you prioritize things is going to determine how much you can fit in the jar. So again, my name is Mr. Wilson. I'm one of the counselors at Carter High School. I hope this has been good, and I'll see you later. Thanks.